Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Let's go to work. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Shout out to everybody that pulled up. I appreciate you. You know, the challenge on these type of topics is that it's really not of interest to a lot of people until it becomes detrimental. And then at that time, it seems to be where, it's urgent. Kind of like the situation in Mason, Tennessee, until it seemed as though the comptroller was going to come in and take over the town and just do that entire town wrong. We would sleep on it. And it's kind of like this on all of these. So for those of you that pull up, hit the like button, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I appreciate you guys for doing that. The comments also, or the description for today's show is that State Representative Antonio Parkinson is supposed to be here. Well, he's not here yet, and he may not show up. I don't know. But the show must go on because this is a very important topic. So what I'm going to do is start off. We're talking about this Tennessee Senate Bill 2440. And it's kind of like the title of the show pretty much sums up what this bill is all about. It's Back to the Future. Oh, he's here. Awesome. Awesomeness.
Here.
Hey, thank you for showing up. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, all right. So, State Representative Antonio Parkinson is in the house, and thank you again for joining. And I know you don't have a lot of time, so I was basically giving a very brief overview in regards to the essence of this bill. In my opinion, is really just to take us all the way back, strip us, disenfranchise us as Black people, Black Americans, disenfranchise us from the rights that we've, the ground that we have set. So I basically have like 3 questions for you.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. Let me close my door real quick.
Absolutely. And so what I am going to do, while Mr. Parkinson is getting squared away, which I'm so grateful, y'all, is I found out about this Senate bill on Twitter. But let me take this quick moment and shout out everybody in the chat. Baby Shay, all the time. Thank you so much for pulling up. Miss Gardner, shout out to you. Tawana, thank you for showing up. Shrink and Sharon, shout out. Nosy Grand, much love to you. Appreciate you guys so much. You don't even know. Let's see. I'm just going to go through these comments while State Representative is getting it.
Yeah. Sorry, y'all. I had to get the bill, too, to make sure we're talking about the same bill.
Absolutely. Not a problem at all.
All right. Okay.
We're grateful to you. So what I was saying about this bill is it's more like the attempt is to strip away our rights as Black people, disenfranchise us, take us all the way back, which is why I kind of titled the show Back to the Future. Because right now, the way these bills are going, our future looks like what we came out of and we fought so hard to get out of. So Sir, you can go ahead and just kind of give that brief overview about the bill because you could say
Well,
it better
well,
than I could.
well. I want to make sure that we're talking about the same bill. Are we talking about the bill by Farmer?
It's actually from Bill, the 2440.
Okay, they give me the wrong bill. Okay, are you talking about the bill that because I got another bill here that says 2440? Are you talking about the bill that in regards to affirmative action
Yes,
and the
yes.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so here's the interesting thing. That bill, it has been what they call general sub in the Senate,
Hmm.
which means that it has been put away where it's not being heard. Now, there's always a possibility, especially with them being in the supermajority, that they can revive a bill and bring it back to life, right? So
Right.
there's always that possibility. And now the bill, from what I understand, is still moving in the House, but whether or not the Senate will pick it up or not, I don't know. And
Okay.
and, and so and just give you a little background too about how this process works. And the when a bill is introduced, in a lot of cases it'll start out one way and then be amended, and by the time it comes out of the process, it may look like something totally different, or may not even exist at all because it died, right? And so our process here in Tennessee is you have a bill in the House, but you have to have a companion bill in the Senate, and a senator carrying the same legislation that you're carrying on the House side. They have to run those bills up the flagpole and through all of the committee processes, and then those bills go to the House floor and the Senate floor. And if they're passed on both sides, they have to have the same exact language, basically. And then if those bills pass in that format, they go to the governor's desk to be signed into law, right? From what I
Okay.
understand, that bill has been sidelined or derailed or taken off notice in the
Yeah.
Senate, so it's not being heard. But last I heard, I think it was last week, the bill was still moving in the House. Now, whether it will continue to trek in the House or not, I'm not sure. But the odds are that it's not going to make it out because the bill has been signed in the Senate.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is play this
Hmm.
very brief clip from a
Sure.
Twitter Spaces where I think it's the president of the NAACP.
Hmm.
That's where I first heard about it. So he's kind of given a brief
Okay.
overview about it. So
Sure.
let's check this out.
Hmm.
A think tank comes up with something, and it starts small, and then it just mushrooms, and it just becomes this whole situation where, yeah. And I think you're right. It's 2440, Senate Bill 2440, now just in Tennessee in committee, and it's something small. But if this thing takes place and it eliminates our MWB enterprise programs in Tennessee, Georgia is next, Texas is next, the Carolinas are next, Alabama is next, Mississippi, is next. And so this is a dangerous bill because it could set forth a dangerous trend. And again, if it gets to a 6-3 conservative leaning Supreme Court, it could potentially undo 30 years worth of case law, which has supported disparity studies and the use of MWBE programs.
So my question is, why do we have to keep revisiting? We make these strides and then we have to revisit them. It seems like, especially as it pertains to Black people. So why is that the case? Why is this being discussed again? And then the second part of that question is, in the language of the bill, what I was able to find, there seems to be a particular piece in it about the education. And I know that in Tennessee,
Hmm.
there seems to be a lot of discussion about charter schools.
Hmm.
So is something going on there? What's tea with that?
So yeah. First, let me send a shout out to my guy. That's Van Turner. He's our county commissioner
Yeah.
in Memphis or in Shelby County, and we've been riders for a very very long time. That's my guy for real, Van Turner. And it's interesting. When this bill first came to light, myself and Commissioner Turner, who's also the head of the NAACP in Memphis, we got together and started pulling groups together to sound the alarm about this, and held a press conference to make sure that everyone was alerted to this even before the bill actually started moving. So yeah,
Right.
and he's solid, man. So I got to give him that shout. Here's
Awesome.
the thing, in Tennessee, uh, we're dealing with um, what's happening across America, and let me put it to you in this perspective, and I want you to think about this. So, America's landscape is shifting, and it's shifting drastically, and it's shifting fast.
Right.
And and the prediction saying that Caucasian Americans would no longer be the majority of Americans. I think it was predicted, what, 10 years out now,
Hmm.
or a little bit less than that, or another 15 years max. That people of color would be the majority in the United States, right?
Right.
And that has spurred a fear
Hmm.
unlike any other fear that America has had,
Right.
and it's fear of its own people, and so you're also dealing with what comes with that in fragility,
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
what has been traditional Americans, right?
Right.
Or European Americans, and so traditional is a bad choice of word, but European Americans, and so that fragility has spurred legislation like this, the dog whistle of critical race theory,
Right.
legislation aimed at LGBTQ, the delay of the Voter Rights Act, and voter suppression,
Right.
and economic suppression,
Hmm.
and more, in order to keep it even goes over to abortion,
Mm.
in order to keep that majority or that power in place.
Right.
And that's what we're dealing with. Tennessee is the most notorious of the states for this stuff to come through. Tennessee has more. Excuse me. Let me put my phone on vibrate. I hear it vibrating somewhere. But
Okay.
Tennessee has more hate groups than any other state.
Mm.
Tennessee had, the statue of the Klan founder Nathan Bedford Forrest sitting in the highest position in between the two chambers where the rules for life are made.
Mm.
The House and the Senate in the Capitol. I want you to think about that. And so you're seeing that fear playing itself out.
Okay. So what do we have to do? Like how can we? What action should we take? Because I do, like Van said, if it passes in Tennessee, it's going to go. It's going to go ahead and spread to the other states. And
Mhm.
what is his reasoning for that, or how does he support that? I agree with him, but
Right.
just how does that how will that work?
Well, see, in a lot of cases, and I can't speak for Van, but in a lot of cases, these bills that are being presented in these predominantly Republican majority state houses
Hmm.
are legislative ideas that either are developed from ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Commission,
Right.
where they create these pieces of legislation. They distribute them to all of their Republican majority state houses, and they start enacting these bill ideas.
Right.
And if you notice, like even with CRT, it was a national thing, right?
Right.
And some of the voter suppression ideas, getting rid of mail-in, and absentee ballots, all national agendas, right?
Right.
And so here's what my response to your question is. Number one, we have to plan like Republicans.
Mm.
They plan years out.
Yes.
And so what you see, the space that you see us in reaction to these bills, CRT, and possibly this bill too, is us always being in a defensive posture
Right.
versus that of an offensive posture.
Right. Right.
Right. And so we're always defending and deflecting legislation
Mhm.
instead of pushing the agenda, especially where we have Democratic majorities. We should be pushing national agendas for our ideas and our values also.
Right. So how do we do that? And how do those of us who are just, merely constituents,
Mm-hmm.
how do we do that? Because a lot of times, like I didn't know anything about this
Right.
2440
Mm-hmm.
until I happened to be in a space that's talking about Mason, Tennessee. So
Right.
how do we get in front of that?
Well, number one, you got to get your ass out and vote.
Okay. Okay.
Right. That's number one. Right. And we got to take everybody out there and vote, and we got to reduce these numbers. So we got to get the numbers to where they have to have us in order to even pass the legislation. I'm not saying we have to be in the majority. We don't have to be in the majority to influence the outcome of bills. We just have to be in the hunt and be in the conversation. In a
Mm-hmm.
lot of cases, especially like in Tennessee, we're in a super minority as Democrats, right? So we can, it doesn't matter if we're in the conversation, so to speak, because they can pass it with or without us.
So I want to play this clip real quick because I know on
Sure.
March 23rd, this was in the House or whatever chamber that was. I'm not really clear, but it didn't. Well, let me just play the clip and
Okay.
then we'll
Okay.
talk about it.
On item 5, Senate Bill 2440.
I'm going to general sub that one as well. I just would like to tell the committee that there are now 2 cases before that the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to take. One of them is fair students against Harvard. One of them is fair students against North Carolina. And in both cases, I believe the court will look at the current affirmative action practices in our higher education institutions around this country. Mr. Chairman, this bill would have banned affirmative action in state and local government, including our higher education institutions in this state. I think it's something that was important. It is something that 9 states have done. California did it with Prop 209 in 1996. Even as liberal as California is, last year they had a referendum on the ballot to undo Prop 209, and it failed 54-46. So banning affirmative action, I think, is something that most people understand as simple fairness. But I don't have the votes here today. I think next year, when the court rules on this case, you may be back here with a similar bill to conform to a Supreme Court ruling.
Good. So we'll move Senate Bill 2440 to general.
Okay, so what is that Supreme Court ruling that he's expecting, and his explanation of it's simple fairness? I think that leads back to your statement about the fragility, because to me it's not simple fairness, and it leads back to these disparity studies. So what is that Supreme Court ruling that he's banking on?
So apparently there's the Supreme Court will take up something involving affirmative action. I'm not sure exactly what that case is, but here's the thing. Here's what these Republicans do. They'll run legislation in anticipation of something that will be before the Supreme Court or is on the docket of the Supreme Court for the court to make a decision. And they'll run that legislation, pass the legislation, so that the legislation is waiting for the decision to go their way. And as soon as the decision goes their way, it triggers the enactment of that legislation.
I see.
And so, and so that's what he was doing. And so just to, so everyone understands, state law cannot trump federal law. So right now, federal law, affirmative action stands. Right. So they wanted to have the legislation done and passed for in the event that the Supreme Court rules that affirmative action is no longer the law of the land, and then automatically it will remove it from Tennessee per this piece of legislation. But if you heard in that was in the Senate, that was Senator Mike Bill that was speaking. He's the author of the bill, right. And what he did was they basically killed the bill in the Senate when they said general sub.
You're right, and he sure seems to be hopeful that it is going to, it's going to revive itself within the next year or something.
Right. So,
and would you agree that this is kind of like an underhanded way of rolling back our civil rights?
Yeah, I do agree with that, because these things were put in place because so many people that were that were not people of color, obviously, benefited from the free labor that happened in this country. Right. And they're still benefiting from that free labor that's happened in that country. And they're benefiting from the networks that were created, with that free labor. And so, these laws were put in place so that individuals that are of color can actually we'll never catch up. Number one, I don't see us catching up anytime soon, but let me say this, but so that individuals can actually begin to get a shot. Because I want to put this all the way back, because we're so far behind the starting line that affirmative action and these programs for minority participation, in some of these government contracts, of which Black folks pay taxes to fund, were still excluding Black people. I'll give you an example. Even in the state of Tennessee, you know, we've had less than 1% of the contracts that were being offered in the state of Tennessee that were going to Black businesses. Less
Right.
than 1%.
Right.
And so, I mean, think about that. Less than 1% of the billions of dollars in tax revenue that's collected by the state of Tennessee. And when the state of Tennessee does business or contracting with other,
Entities.
businesses,
Right.
less than 1% of that revenue that's been allocated is
Mm-hmm.
going to a Black business.
Goes to
And there are
us.
so many filtering agents in place that would either disqualify or make the bar too high for these businesses to be able to contract. And I want you to think about this too, and this is what I told them in committee, is that there's a lot of money in America. I mean, it's ridiculous how much money is circulating in America and abroad with American interests, right? And so, if your business was able to just get a crumb off the crust of that pie, it would make you wealthy for generations. Right? And I'm talking about just a crumb. I'm talking about a crumb that'll fit on the end of a pin.
Come on.
The crumb off of that pie, it will make you wealthy for generations. And so I was trying to get them to understand there's no reason for you to fear that you're going to lose something if Black folks are able to,
participate and take advantage of these things that have already been designated by law for us to get into.
We're
So
not
what
even
is
talking about a slice of the pie. We're talking about a crumb off the crust. The
right?
crumb that fell off the table.
Come on.
Right, that piece. Right. That the dog is going to run by and lick up. That's the piece that will make Black folks wealthy for generations to come, right? And so there's no reason to fear that you're going to lose something. And that's, again, it goes back to that fear and fragility.
That fragility. So what do we have to do to say, look, it's just a crumb, know, because we could get gangster with it if you want to, and say, we want half the pie. So what do we have to do in order to, to enforce?
Number one is we have to stop begging and dying at people's table that don't necessarily want us at their table, right? And build our own table and start dining amongst ourselves and directing our money towards the people who want us around, which is us. Right? I'll give you an example. I remember when all of this stuff was going on, the George Floyd stuff and this, that, and the other. And I always tell people this. I say, and let me be clear. I have no issue with people protesting and things of that nature, right? But they will let us protest until we turn blue in the face and fall out. And then because one thing is certain is that white folks have studied us more than we've even studied ourselves, and they understand our behaviors, and they understand that, today ain't nobody talking about George Floyd, and they knew that back when we were protesting, that today nobody's going to be talking about George Floyd or Trayvon Martin, right? And they knew that when we were protesting and burning shit down, excuse my language, and burning stuff down, right? And they also knew that if they burn it down, we got the insurance on it, we're going to replace it or move it somewhere else, but we're going to get paid when they burn it down. They understood that also. Right. And so they, and then all of a sudden, you remember this, right? All of a sudden, everybody got these minority setups, everybody's screaming Black Lives Matter, NFL, standing on everybody, right? Right. We're going to do what we have to do while they're doing it. So Black folks are appeased, right? And then at the end of the day, you start trying to tap into those programs that were made available, and you probably can't even extract nothing from them at this point, right? Now, and so but what we didn't do was make an example out of the organizations or those businesses that were funding these elected officials that were allowing for these policies or allowing for nothing to be done when these things happen, right? And so, for example, if you know that Home Depot is a huge supporter of Trump, you know that Trump was stoking this stuff and part of the problem, then how come we didn't just redirect all of our money away from a Home Depot into a Lowe's or somebody else? Or especially if there was a Black one, but how come we didn't direct our energy as one, right? Directing how we spend our money, that's what's going to make a difference. Let me qualify that. It's been about, I want to say 4 or 5 times that America shifted on its axis, and it's always been about money. First example, England was taxing the rich for staples, sugar, coffee, this, that, and other. Poor folks wasn't even being taxed because they didn't even have access to the stuff.
Right.
But somehow the rich folks duped the poor folks into dumping tea and sugar into the harbor that they didn't even have access to.
Right.
And guess what? America shifted it. There was a Revolutionary War, right?
Mhm.
And poor folks fought it, right? And then America shifted again when the North was going to tank the economy of the South by ridding it of slavery, right? And that was about money, right? You know, if we don't have this free labor, who's gonna generate all this money for us, right?
Right.
And then America shifted again. There was a war, there was a fight. America shifted again. It was about money. Third time was when Black folks got wise, right? And they said, man, we're gonna boycott these city services, buses, so on and so forth.
Right.
Drive these cities up. It was about money. And guess what? Civil rights action happened, right? Fourth time, you know, those folks over there in wherever they came from, they flew them planes into them world banks.
Right.
America was never the same again, shifted on its axis again, about money. Then this last time is called the pandemic. America shifted and would never be the same again,
Right.
because it was about the money,
Mhm.
right? And so now that's the language that America speaks. You know, so again, you can protest and walk and shout and this, that, and other, and you know, but you sound like Charlie Brown's teacher to these folks,
Well, wait.
right? And
Right.
instead, you got to speak capitalism. That's the language. That's the American language, not English, not Espanol, not any. It's capitalism. And
Right.
if you're not speaking that language of green, you ain't talking about nothing to these folks. They ain't even
Right.
hearing you. They'll let you shout and burn down some shit, and
Yeah.
you know, and then at the same day, their language is going to speak. They're going to get their money, get their check cut, and build it again. Maybe build it outside of your neighborhood or whatever,
Right.
and get their money. So we have the ability as a people to direct our economic impact, but we don't. That is what needs to be done. And guess what? Watch it. Let me hit you with this. Who's and so let me preface with this.
Okay.
You know, so voting is important. Let me
Right.
say that. So now it's okay. Nobody say I said voting wasn't important.
Right.
But the Asians are the least amount of people to vote in America by numbers, right?
Right. Okay.
But they're third economically by numbers. Think about that. Why? How? They ain't
Yeah.
talking about voting for this person, that person, the other person. We always screaming vote, 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 which I agree. Vote. You should vote.
Right.
But it's more important. And hell, I'm an elected official. I need people to vote, right?
Right.
But it's more important for us to direct our money and circulate our money amongst ourselves than it is for you to vote. Ask the Asians. They're last place in voting, but they're third place economically.
Right. So how do we, on a national level, how do we take that same statement that you just made? How do we communicate that throughout America and get on code, for lack of a better term?
We
How
have
do
to
we do that?
organize. We have to organize.
And how do we do that? Because
We have to
let me
organize.
say this, because a lot of people feel like, you know, the NAACP has lost its integrity. So, you know, and then the current leaders, if you want to call any of them that, we don't really have any that, you know, can move and shake an entire nation. So how do we communicate this unified, singular message of the direction that we need to go in next?
Right. And so the simplest way, you know, so you're looking at structure. The simplest way to me would be you have a Black agenda for every state, and then you bring all of those Black agendas together as one to form one agenda in the areas that everybody agree on.
Okay.
That's the simplest form.
So now I'm going to switch gears on you just real quick, a little bit.
Okay. And I'm going to dab my. I'm
Go ahead, do your
you know,
thing.
give me-
Do your thing.
Yeah,
I'm grateful for you for
Right.
pulling up. Okay, so
Right.
do what you got to do.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm listening. Though.
So shout out to Antoinette, who sent this to me before the show. This is a poll that was presented by the Black Caucus, and the question was, which legislative priority of the Congressional Black Caucus do you want to hear more about and remain the most important to you? And the winner was reparations. So
Mm-hmm.
where do we stand? I know that HR 40. I just got off the,
Mm-hmm.
that call with about reparations and that study going on in California, and my understanding after having spoken with someone a couple months ago, that the next action is simply going to be
Mm-hmm.
authorization to study
Mm-hmm.
reparations, which that
Yeah,
could be another
yeah, and
30
that and
years.
that to me simply kicks the ball down, kicks the can down the road. But
Hmm.
here's the thing too that I think is important to understand in the big scheme of things when you're talking about an agenda. That that piece that you just showed up there is more of is one part of an agenda. That focuses on policy, right, and political policy. But you
Okay.
also have to remember, in as part of an agenda, if you start looking at the overall overarching subject matter, you look at health, right,
Mm-hmm.
education, right, and shit. How do we put money into the households,
Right.
right? And under that, just that heading, how do we put money into the households, falls economic development, jobs, businesses, such and such. This, that reduction of taxes, this, that, and other. You,
Mm-hmm.
you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Even in health means access to health care, right? Wellness, well-being, right? And
Right. Mental health.
having more black doctors, black
Right.
nurses, right? Reducing disparities. You see what I'm saying? And
Right.
so reparations would fall under how do we put more money into the households? One
Mm-hmm.
of many subject matters that
I
need to
see.
be addressed under a black agenda that would bring a unified direction for all of Black America to walk by, and at least a guidebook, right? If you think
Mm-hmm.
about an agenda, you're really talking about a business plan for Black America,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is how what we're going to use as our guidebook to move us into the direction of success for that business or for that entity of Black America.
Right. The Black American agenda is what it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Black agenda. Yeah. And
So
here's the interesting thing, real quick
yes.
too.
Yes.
Because you have a black agenda does
Mm-hmm.
not mean that it always goes counter to what the white folks' agenda is. There
Absolutely.
may be some areas of synergy where we can all,
Right.
agree on, right? But
Right.
at the end of the day, it goes back to what I said earlier. We're always in a defensive posture because they are executing their agenda,
Right.
right? And we don't have one. So
Mm.
we're basically left to the whims of which way their winds decide to blow, and we have to fight against that wind. You ever try to walk through a heavy wind and try to get to where
Absolutely.
you're trying to get, right?
Especially in
Lose your hat,
Chicago.
lose your hat in Chicago. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago. That's man. But yeah, but because we don't have an agenda, we're always pushing into those winds.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, I mean, we just have so much, and I just, for the sake of transparency, I had a different perspective about you
Oh,
until until your office said, yeah, he'll come on your show. He said, yes, he would. Because I didn't know what you guys were doing up there. And I'm like, well, how is this bill even being entertained?
right.
But then I read a couple articles and I saw what you said about the Senate Bill 2440, and that, you were like, hey, if this passes, we are going to take this to court.
Right.
And so I could feel your energy through that. But before that, I was like, man, what are they doing up there? The Black Caucus ain't doing nothing. I
Right.
wasn't giving y'all no props at all, but
Show some love, baby. Show some love.
I'm showing love now because,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm showing love now.
Here's the thing, and thank you for saying that. I appreciate your transparency too. And
Absolutely.
one thing about me, and if you'll follow and just and please follow us on social media at TN Rep Parkinson. That's why I put that up there too.
Absolutely.
Twitter and on Facebook and every Instagram, all of it. But the reason why I'm saying that too is not just for self promotion, honestly.
Absolutely.
It's because I want you to understand the pulse. When I became Black Caucus chair almost 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, I set us on this path, right, of even having an agenda. There was no agenda for the Black Caucus before that. And not just that, but having a strategic plan. There was no strategic plan for the Black Caucus, before that. And now, let me be clear. All of the people that came before me were great leaders, right? But I just had a different pathway for our caucus. And I also set us on the three-pronged agenda of health education and how the hell we're going to put money into the households.
Right.
Right. And you notice I'm not calling this economic development because I don't want to speak over anyone's head. And I want to be clear on what and concise on what my intentions are. My intentions are, let's run legislation that will put money into our folks' houses. Right. That
Absolutely.
means reducing taxes, making it so that more jobs are available, even getting kids in summer employment, right? Workforce development, right? Soft skills, make sure people have soft skills so they can maintain, creating opportunities for micro businesses.
Sure.
Keywords, right? You notice I didn't say small business.
Right.
Micro businesses, because that's where the majority of our businesses are. That's ma, pa, 3 or 4 people working, Ted's concrete slabs or
Right.
whoever, right?
Right.
Micro businesses. Small businesses are multi-million-dollar businesses. Most of us don't have those. So I'm talking about those micros, right? Nobody's talking about them. The beauty salon, the natural hair salon, right? Creating opportunities like that for them to open up businesses and thrive, or schools and thrive, regaining product and industry position that belongs to us, such as hair, right? And these things. So that's been my focus. And what's interesting about that is, and what I'm thankful for is when I was able to get the Black Caucus to adopt that three-pronged strategy, health education, and how do we put money into the households. The Democratic caucus in the House adopted that same philosophy and that same agenda. And then the Tennessee Democratic Party adopted that same three-pronged agenda. And so it's spreading, because my thoughts were this, and I always use this as an example, because I'm visual, right? So I want you to be visual with me for a half a second. Sure. So what the Republicans do is this: they'll throw out those fringe issues, that their far right will throw out there, right? It's like, imagine them, and you got 2 Republicans in a boat, 2 far right members, and one is driving the boat and one is at the end of the boat with a big deep sea fishing rod and a hook and some bait. Right. But that bait will be fringe issues such as transgenders in bathrooms. Right. And they'll cast that line out there with that bait. And previously, before we were in leadership positions in the Democratic caucus in the House, they cast that stuff out there about a bill like that. And then the Democrats would go swimming under white Democrat leadership, would go out there chasing these bills, right, about transgenders or somebody in the bathroom. Now, let me be clear. Every issue is important. Right. But we go out there chasing these issues, right? Out here deep into the ocean, right? And then they, the guy, that got the fishing line, the Republican with the fishing line, he'd be like, well, it don't look like anything's biting out here. Let's take it back in, right? They go back out there, back to the shore where the party is happening at with their colleagues, right? And we're stuck out there in the middle of the ocean, drowning. Right.
Chasing something that doesn't immediately or directly impact us.
And then on that shore, there's, he gets on the shore, gets on the beach where the party is. Hey, throw me a beer. Party over here, party over there, right? And yeah, we're gonna reduce your taxes. We're gonna make sure your kids get through college. This, that, and other. Meanwhile, we're out there drowning because they done led us out there in the ocean about some damn bathrooms. Now, so my point became, look, we're getting our asses kicked in messaging, right? These folks are talking about how they're going to reduce, keep money in people's pockets. So now, let's equalize the message, and then let's win by the person. You follow me? That makes sense?
Okay, yeah.
So you can't go out there saying that because we're passing or running legislation and passing bills that will reduce taxes, running legislation, passing bills that's going to put money into your house, that's going to make it so you have access to healthcare. It's going to make it so your education is great. Right, at the same time, defending dumb shit like this affirmative action stuff, right, which takes money out of your household, right? You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so with that, we have an agenda, in Tennessee, believe it or not, that we are focused on, and that will also help us to win elections, because now, we got the receipts, saying what we're trying to do with the bills that we've been pushing, reducing grocery taxes. Right now, the governor has adopted a reduction in grocery taxes, or no grocery taxes for 30 days in Tennessee. That came from us. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah. So that's what we've been doing.
I see. Yeah, it's clear you guys are putting in work.
Hmm.
Which until following up on you, I didn't. I didn't know all that. And
Oh, and I don't mind. I don't mind at all. I always say, I'm the most underestimated person,
right,
in elected.
sure,
But it's all good though. I love it. I love it because it gives me a unique advantage that most people don't have because when
absolutely.
they're relaxed.
So
They're
now,
relaxed.
one other question about these, because again, that bill speaks a little bit, and it seems a little word salady, for lack of a better term, about these charter schools. Now,
Mhm.
so what's going on with the charter school thing going on? Because I thought I understood that I guess some grant money and some state money is going to be available for people who are starting these charter schools, and I
So
just
so
yeah,
so so that so that language in that bill in 2440 regarding education is about contracting. It's about contracting, and whether it's a government entity or an
mhm,
education entity, and how those contracts are awarded, and how those and even the approval of, and I don't know if it will go over to that, but I can see it going over to that,
mhm,
even in the approval of charter schools, so that they can say that we're not allowing for any type of bias, whether positive for black folks or people of color or not,
mhm,
under this legislation. And so that can, and I want to tell you how far reaching that could have been, because even with Ford coming in, the Ford deal
right,
is the biggest deal that has ever happened in the state of Tennessee,
right,
right? And it's a really, really big deal, right?
absolutely,
And so if Ford Motor Company was to contract with the state of Tennessee, then it would affect how Ford does their minority participation under that contract,
right,
right?
right,
And Ford
exactly.
has their own minority participation program that has been effective,
Hmm.
right? So that would have had an effect on that also.
Right. So, and
Yeah.
Ford, the way they've been sounding off about that Mason, Tennessee, which is really not really sounding off about it, sounds to me like they wouldn't have had a problem coming in and reducing their area of responsibility as it relates to diversity, because the way this bill is set up, this 2440, had it passed, it would have been doing Ford a big favor. And one of the other things that I learned, which is why I'm asking about that education piece, is because I know that they're going to be building a new technology school out there, which is going to enable Ford to hire people directly from the local area to be
Right.
able to work on their
But
vehicles.
but let me be clear. Let me be clear. And so, I have no relationship with the folks at Ford, but
Hmm.
this I can tell you from being in the business of public relations and marketing, right? Ford don't want no part of that shit that they were running in 2440. That's not good for their brand, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
Ford has a minority participation program because they've been operating in one of the blackest cities in the country, in Detroit, right?
Absolutely.
And so
Right.
even with the Mason, Tennessee stuff, Ford didn't want their name anywhere near that, the stuff that was going on, or the narrative and noise that was out
Sure.
there about Mason, Tennessee. And
Absolutely.
so anybody that is tying Ford to either of these, I just lean to in the space that I just will not believe that Ford would even associate their brand with any
Mm.
of this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I can buy into that. I think
yeah,
I can.
yeah.
I
It,
can.
it, it's
I
it's
can
too-
get back to
it's too big of a brand, number one, to be uh,
that.
you know
Besmirched.
well, not just that, but to be uh waddling in the mud of these two issues. That makes
Right.
sense.
Yes, it does.
Right, right.
It does.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I can ride with that.
right,
But I don't want to switch the subject on there because I have additional opinions about that. But
right.
um, Representative Antonio Parkinson, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you
having
for
me.
coming in. Thank you for breaking it down in layman's terms for us. And I'm definitely following you on Facebook, and so
All
I'll
right, awesome.
get with you on Twitter and IG, and just try to stay on top of everything. But yeah, I feel like I guess the takeaways is we need a black agenda on a national level,
Absolutely.
and I don't know how that can get started, but that's something we definitely need to do. And I also feel like with this, with COVID being, lasting as long as it has, we need these protections in these disparity studies and the results thereof. We need this because, more people quit their jobs when COVID popped off. And so, being a entrepreneur is critical in a lot of people's lives right now.
Right.
So the last thing we need in the state of Tennessee or anywhere else is anything that's going to continue to hold us back or really just take us back in time.
Well, and I agree, but I also agree that we have to remove ourselves from the dependency of any policy that they create, which means that we need to make sure that we are keeping our resources and revenues circulating amongst ourselves,
Awesome.
which gives us that independence of regardless of what policies they come up with.
That's a word. That's a word.
All right.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, I sure do appreciate you. Let me see if there's and Nosy Rosie Grand said that she learned a lot just from listening today. So
Well, thank you too, and I appreciate your platform. And I'm sorry that this is my first time hearing about the platform, but I truly appreciate your platform and keep on building it. And make sure you send me the links too, and I will make sure that we push it to our 80,000 plus people that we have access to.
Absolutely.
To be able to hear, and see what you're talking about on your platform too.
Absolutely.
And great job, by the way. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And same to you. So, okay, that's it. That's the podcast, y'all. So be sure to like, share, subscribe, Replay Gang, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. And until next time, we will see you when we see you. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, Replay Gang, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Let's go to work.